What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark, back to MovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and it's a glorious day. It's a day. This has happened a couple times for me in my life. No, it seems like it doesn't because you look at my subscriber count and you're like, you're lying. But actually it does. And shockingly, I love it. Uh, I have already reviewed this movie, but after reviewing the movie, which I reviewed without audio description because the screener link that I was given did not have audio description, the director of the film reached out to me and provided me the film with audio description, which is exactly what's happened. Uh, it already happened once this year with the movie Happy Campers. So the director was sad that I was not provided accessibility. So that happened here. This is The Body Politic, Part 2. No, it's the same movie. It's just the second review of it because I had audio description. So I now know that this is a PBS documentary, which is one of the helpful reasons as to why it had audio description is because the thing also ran on PBS. I have a little bit better understanding now, having seen the film twice. I feel like I have a slightly better understanding of the politics of Baltimore and Maryland in general. But I still really enjoy watching this. I don't usually like rewatching documentaries. It's a weird thing. It's why sometimes when I make my top 25 list, I also make like a separate one for documentaries because I'll watch narrative features like 10, 20 times. But like with documentaries, if I watch you 2 or 3 times, congratulations. You know? There are many documentaries that I consider to be like the best documentaries I've ever seen. I've only seen them once. Like, I only ever needed to see The Cove once, and that movie is still ingrained in my brain. My brain is bleeding still from The Cove, just like those poor dolphins. Some images just like last a lifetime, you know? So, Body Politic, The Body Politic, is about the struggle to end gun violence in Baltimore, which has more murders and deaths than New York City, despite the fact that New York City is larger than Baltimore. I didn't realize it was that much larger than Baltimore. I've never really done the math because I always think Baltimore is a large city in and of itself. But I guess like when you really break it down, and then you also think about like city limits too. Like I live in an area where if you count just the city of population is okay. But if you count what is called the metropolitan area, it's like population much bigger because of urban spread. So, but it features Brandon, who is he grew up on the streets and he feels like he shouldn't even, like statistically, he shouldn't have made it out, but he did. And he's, heard his whole life that people keep waiting for his generation to change things, and he wants to be the change. It's very inspirational. And he starts out as the council president, and then he ends up running for mayor, and he sort of is not, you know, the hottest candidate on the block. We do see the sort of like the progression of how him speaking to people ends up eventually getting him to become mayor so that he can enact policies. We see the pushback because anytime somebody hears anything remotely relating to the term defund the police, they immediately jump up in arms about it. And instead of asking, well, what do you mean, sir? What would you like to fund instead? What is your plan? Are you everybody always act like we're defunding the police so we can, like, I don't know, pop up some Krispy Kremes or something, like, we think it would be fun if we just had, like a taco truck on every street instead of a cop car. We're going to try that. Food trucks. That's what we want to fund. Like, I don't know. So for the majority of the movie, Brandon just is trying to get a meeting with the governor who won't meet with him. And eventually he does get the meeting. Of course, the cameras don't get to go in on the meeting, uh, and because Hogan does not want them in there, not Hulk, but Larry. Um, and I guess some stuff is discussed, and then they come out and they're, you know, Brandon clearly has a little bit better idea of gun violence and how to fix it because, he's not an elderly white gentleman who never has dealt with gun violence in his life. But um, it's it's seeing these plans come into action. It's seeing these safe streets. It's seeing how, like, going to the apartment of this one young man who has sort of been pulled out of. They have this sort of like at risk program where they write letters to people who are at risk, which I think is like, I can see people just, like the wrong people just getting the letter and like setting on fire or throwing it away or whatever. But then like some people read that letter and they're like, wow, somebody cares. And I guess they reach, for every person they reach, it makes it worth it. So they had this guy that had been shot and is in a wheelchair, and we don't, it's not, his face isn't shown for his own safety purposes. Basically, they relocate them, and then they try to help them get a job and everything to try to set their life on a better pathway. And it's so intriguing. Like, it's so interesting. Like, it's a lot of work. It's a system, but when everything is broken, you have to do something. You know, if your house gets hit by a tornado and everything is just in shambles, and you just can't stand there and just stare at it and be like, wow, the house is in shambles. Oh, God, what do we do? I don't know. I mean, at some point, somebody has to go in there and start doing something, you know? And I think that's just what he's trying to do. Instead of just continuously calling the house in shambles, he's actually trying to be like, well, okay, let's start here and let's do this. Let's fix this. It's a lot of work, obviously. Nobody else is going to do it but us. So we got to get in there and do it. And I actually did not mind seeing this film twice, and especially with audio description the second time. So it was one of my favorite documentaries of 2024. It has a real hard time defeating stuff like No Land and Sugarcane. I'm just going to be really honest. There are a couple documentaries that are just sort of like, God, they make me like question. This is close though, because I do think about like the privilege that I have to sit here in this chair in a safe space and have this conversation. But I've started to just learn that I have to be an advocate for blind accessibility, and just my situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't just be like, oh God, I can't talk about audio description because of the war in Gaza. You know, like, blind people still deserve accessibility regardless of where there's war, where there's famine, where there's poverty. Like, accessibility for disabled people still just has to be a thing wherever. In every country, really, there should be people doing that, still working and still just being like, yes, the life around us is terrible, but we have to keep moving forward, which is a little bit like what Brandon's doing here. It's like saying, yes, there are problems, but if we don't start tackling them, there will continue to be problems, because what other people have been doing isn't working, and we have to try a new way. So I respect the hell out of this guy. I think he's awesome, and I thank the director so much for giving me access to this film's audio description track, which you should be able to find via PBS, however you access PBS, like on-demand type stuff, like not, like through an app, like online website stuff. I don't think this is, it might have maybe another air date on PBS. I don't know PBS's life like that. We're not tight. So you're going to have to probably do a little bit of research to find. But this is how 20 Days in Mariupol got audio description last year. That was a PBS documentary, so that was how it inherited audio description. So, again, I wholeheartedly recommend this, and now I can put like a firm grade on it. I can put a ring on it, and I'm gonna give the Body Politic an A. Uh, yeah, I think this is a top 10 documentary for me. Just a spoiler alert is I just I can't get past some of the other ones. We Will Dance Again was another one. It was just like, oh my God. I've been so moved this year by documentary that it becomes so hard to appreciate things where um, a documentarian is not shaking up my perception of the world somehow. The world seems to be on fire right now, and filmmakers are just exploring many ways in which that is true. There's even a really great documentary about the Philippines and the politics of the Philippines. It's a great year for documentaries, just like it was a great year for horror movies. 2024, winner of both. Bad year for sequels, though. Not a great year on the whole for a lot of sequels. But anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.